What actually happens to creativity when a society gets pushed to the very brink? Today, we're going to explore how art manages to survive in times of conflict, in times of real uncertainty, and maybe most importantly, why it matters so much more than we think.
So let's just start with a simple question. When you hear the word war, what's the first image that comes to your mind? For most of us, it's a pretty familiar and pretty bleak set of pictures. First, you've got the physical toll, right? The ruined buildings, the shattered streets. It's the most obvious, tangible proof of what's been lost. Then, our minds usually shift to the bigger picture, the geopolitical stuff. We think about redrawn borders, military plans, and that constant scrolling cycle of news headlines. And of course, there's the human cost, the faces of people forced to pack up their lives and leave everything behind. It's absolutely heartbreaking. Now, all of these are crucial parts of the story, don't get me wrong, but they aren't the whole story. There's another kind of casualty here, one that's a lot quieter, and often it goes completely unnoticed. We're talking about the slow erosion of a society's cultural fabric. It's a loss that starts happening long before the headlines show up, and it continues long after they've faded away. I mean, just think about it in real terms. All those small places where artists work and collaborate, they suddenly become incredibly fragile. Studios have to shut their doors, exhibitions get put on hold, maybe forever. And the artists themselves, they're left trying to figure things out in the exact same fog of uncertainty as everyone else. But this is where a really fascinating paradox kicks in, because it's in these exact moments of chaos and instability that the role of art, well, it doesn't just become important, it becomes essential. It becomes a lifeline. You can see this huge shift in its purpose. In peacetime, we might think of art as, decoration or entertainment, but in a crisis, it completely transforms into a tool for survival. It becomes a way to process a reality that feels totally overwhelming, a space to just breathe when you're surrounded by anxiety, and a really profound way to stay connected to life itself. And this is the absolute key. When events happen that feel incomprehensible, art helps people make sense of it all. A poem, a painting, a song, they can give us a language for things when our own words just aren't enough. But here's the other side of that coin. While artists are helping their communities work through these incredibly difficult moments, they're often facing a double crisis themselves. See, they're dealing with the same personal instability as everybody else, but on top of that, their entire professional world, their audiences, the events, the cultural spaces, it often just evaporates. So how does this fragile, essential work actually survive? Well, the answer isn't just about inspiration. It's community. It's about people making the active choice to support the creators and the entire ecosystem they rely on. Just look at an initiative like Kulturnest in Lebanon. It's a country with this amazing, vibrant cultural scene that has had to exist alongside recurring crises for a long time. Kulturnest is a network of more than 250 artists. We're talking visual artists, musicians, writers, you name it. And it's not just a space, it's a community that's been built to make sure that art and dialogue can keep going no matter how tough things get. And that's so important because these artists are all part of this larger thing we call a cultural ecosystem. It's this whole web of connections, right, between the creators, the venues, the audiences, that lets a society's imagination really thrive. And when one part of that web gets weak, the whole system is at risk. So networks like Kulturnest, they work to keep those connections strong. Because really, that's what this all boils down to. Culture isn't some abstract idea floating out there in the ether. It's deeply, deeply human. It's made up of individuals who are dedicating their lives to telling stories, to questioning reality, and to imagining new ways of seeing the world around us. And this brings us to what might be the most powerful part of this whole story, the quiet, stubborn act of creation itself as a form of defiance. Even when it feels like everything is on hold, creativity just finds a way. A mural suddenly brings a splash of color to a gray, concrete wall. A musician plays, maybe not for a huge crowd, but just to keep that connection to their craft and to life alive. A poet finds the exact right words to capture a moment, creating this tiny, precious space for reflection. Now, these gestures might seem small when you put them up against major world events, but when you look at them collectively, they're incredibly powerful. They represent this fundamental refusal to let a story of destruction be the only story that gets told.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Well, culture isn't a luxury item. It is a society's creative lifeblood. And supporting artists isn't just about helping out individuals, it's about protecting a community's collective imagination. It's how we keep the very possibility of a future, any future, beyond this moment, alive. And maybe that's the quiet, enduring strength of art. Even in the absolute most challenging times, it serves as this profound reminder that no matter what is happening, the human story is still being written. And we all have a role to play in what that next chapter is going to look like.